I've been working on this issue for 15 years, and I feel like I've been waiting for this moment because the one thing...
The member will defer. The chair recognizes the representative from Pittston, Representative Hanley, and inquires as to why
I raise the same objection that I raised before.
The member will wait until he is recognized before speaking. The chair recognizes the representative from Pittston, Representative Hanley.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. My excitement, I'm sorry. I raise the same objection that I raised earlier.
Chloe Maxmin, the youngest woman to become a state senator for her state, and Canyon Woodward, her campaign manager, wrote an essay in the New York Times a few months back discussing whether Democrats should stick to campaigning to their loyal Democratic voters or if they should actually try to swing voters in rural areas. They say the latter is worth a shot, and as we're just 1 month away from the midterms, they may be onto something. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and Chloe Maxmin was a 25-year-old climate activist and progressive Democrat when she won a state House seat in her very elderly and very rural district. She went on to win a state Senate seat 2 years later, unseating the Republican incumbent who also happened to be the Senate minority leader. She did it not by compromising her progressive politics and pandering to conservatives, but by actually talking to the voters in her district. Now, I have to say up front that the op-ed is not without its flaws, and several assertions made within it are a bit misleading when you take a magnifying glass to them. But if we just take the overall point, Chloe and Canyon are confronting and addressing something that comes up quite a bit in progressive circles. What's the best way for Democrats to actually win votes? The tried and only sometimes true method that the Democratic Party seems to favor is to focus on large metropolitan areas that tend to have large concentrations of Democratic voters, and try to convince them to actually turn up to the ballot box on Election Day. As we all know, this approach has unreliable success. What the authors are suggesting is that Democrats who claim to be on the side of the working class should actually talk to the working class, especially those outside of the traditionally Democratic urban areas. It's not a crazy concept or consideration, and she's certainly not the first one to have said that this needs to happen, but Chloe largely draws on and refers to her own experience as a candidate in Maine when stating her case. That said, it shouldn't be assumed that her results and experiences would be easily replicated in other districts, nor should it be assumed that Democrats have never ventured out into the countryside seeking votes. They have and they do, though perhaps they could do it a little bit more. One thing that Democrats and progressives alike tend to not understand is why people seem to vote against their own interests. It's not a great thing that we say because it's very presumptuous to assume that you know what's best for a stranger based on very little knowledge of their lives, and understandably, they don't like when we say things like that. But it usually comes from a place of perplexion on our part. We don't understand why they vote for Republicans when Republican policies almost always disenfranchise working-class Americans. We assume that they vote for Republicans based on dogmatically held views on social issues like abortion and gun control. We assume they're lost causes because how can you convince anyone that the election wasn't stolen when they've already decided based on no evidence at all that it was? While those Republican voters exist, those Republicans aren't all Republicans. Many vote for Republicans because Democratic messages simply don't reach them. If you have a conversation with a non-MAGA Republican voter, their concerns are usually not very far off from your own. Sometimes they're misinformed about things that are easily cleared up because their only source of information is Trump himself. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was talking to a Republican just after Biden was elected. This guy was an older veteran and he had some pretty gnarly experiences while he was serving, so he was intimately familiar with the VA. He made a comment that the VA had improved over the past few years, but now that Biden was in office and undoing everything Trump did, he was expecting things to go back to the way they were before. But Trump didn't have anything to do with the Veterans Access to Care Through Choice, Accountability, and Transparency Act of 2014 because Trump was not the president in 2014. Obama was, and Obama signed the bill. Trump only took credit for it, and according to the Washington Post fact checkers, Trump did so more than 150 times. He told a Fox affiliate reporter, quote, "We've got choice approved. I mean, nobody thought we could possibly get choice approved. We have Veterans Choice approved." Again, he was not the president when choice was approved. It was such a simple misconception that could easily have been cleared up for him sooner if someone from outside of his Trump bubble had just had a conversation with him. But it's not news that rural voters tend to be Republican voters. That's why there's always so much more red on the electoral maps than blue, even in years when Democrats win. If you look at the electoral map of Texas, you'll see it plain as day. Bright blue spots over major cities and metropolitan areas swimming in a sea of red. Yes, even Texas cities are blue, but the problem in a state as big as this one is that all those in-between areas add up. When Beto O'Rourke came dangerously close to unseating Ted Cruz in the 2018 Senate race, a near achievement that I still don't think he gets enough credit for, it was because Beto took the time to visit every single county in Texas, something the state had never seen a political candidate do before. But it is work and it is resources. It takes time, manpower, organization, and money to hit everyone in your district or city or state. It takes mental energy to have sometimes difficult conversations with people, especially when those people are strangers who might be skeptical or dismissive of your motives. Still, the Democrats need to do a better job of reaching the people that often get overlooked. And more importantly, if and when they flip voters from red to blue, they have to keep their campaign promises to them. Otherwise, it's no good. All right, that is it for me. Please like and subscribe if you got anything out of this content. And be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.